My name is Matt Clark. I am a family pastor in Florida, one of Justin's former youth ministers, but most importantly, friend of Justin. On behalf of the family, I thank you for being here today to celebrate the life of Justin Nesselroad. Thank you for your expressions of love and concern for the family. Today we embark on two things: celebrate his life and live beyond his death. This time I'd like to invite Andrew Larson, who's a local pastor and friend of Justin, to open our time together with a word of prayer and a reading of Scripture.
Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, as we gather here today to remember Justin's life and to mourn his death, we thank you that we don't need to sorrow as those who have no hope, because our hope is in Jesus Christ. Lord, we ask that you would comfort each family member, each friend, and each loved one. Would you give us strength to leave him in your care, in the knowledge of his eternal life through Jesus Christ. Father, thank you for Justin's life and for the time that we shared with him. We lift him to you today in honor of the good we saw in him and the love we felt for him. Comfort, encourage, and sustain us now. We ask all this in the name of Jesus. Amen. From Revelation chapter 21. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." He who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true."
Today you're going to find at your seats and at the tables a tribute card. And this tribute card is in lieu of a standard book that you would sign when you come to a service. We would love for you, if you're able and willing, to write a note. Maybe it's to Justin or about Justin. Maybe it's to his family or about his family. Just something that you would like to contribute. And there's some clips and wire in the back of the room. And that's our tribute wall. We would love anytime, and especially if you want to do it afterward, you can, to write something and place it on the tribute wall for the family to read. That's for all of you in this room. We also want to welcome all of you who are online. See, we're live streaming Justin's YouTube channel, the Operation Liver. And so we want to invite you as well to contribute to that. Obviously, you can't put anything on the wall, but your comment section is your wall. And we ask that if you'd like to contribute, saying things about Justin or to Justin or the family, do that on there. I would love to introduce the family. They're going to come and share some tributes of their own that they're going to allow us to peek into their life with Justin. So if the family would come forward. Family is going to share moments that they've all had and moments that we would like to remember and celebrate with Justin.
So, hi, my name is Jim Nesselroad, and I am Justin and Jimmy's dad. And I want to thank you all for being here with us. what I wanted to do was just, I think each of us are going to go through and talk a little bit about what Justin, different moments in our lives where Justin has had an impact. There's so many of them. I actually wrote 2 or 3 pages of it. And then on the way back, Jimmy and I were here earlier, and on the way back home to change, Jimmy read me his. So I decided to throw mine away because it was so good. So, but one of the first memories, or one of the first times Justin really taught me a lesson was when he was in first grade. I had to go pick him up for a dentist appointment. And when I went in to get him, they took me into the computer room. And the kids were paired off, 2 persons per computer. And when I looked, Justin was paired off with a little girl in a wheelchair. So when I went to sign him off with the teacher, she said, Mr. Nesselroad, I want you to know what kind of a son you have. She goes, he actually asked to be with Jenny. She's got MS, and she's a little bit behind in the computer class, and he asked if he could help her. And so I just think you should be very proud of him, which I really am. Another moment that I remember is when Justin was diagnosed with primary sclerosing cholangitis. We got a second opinion up at the Mayo Clinic, and when we got back, they confirmed that was the diagnosis. But when we got back, we're going across the court into Campbell Causeway, and he goes, "Hey, Dad." I go, "What?" He goes, "I think I'm pretty lucky." And here I am, like trying to hold the tears back because I don't know, where this is going to go. We do know it's going to have to be a liver transplant. I said, "Okay, son." I said, why are you lucky?" And he goes, "You know that little girl I was playing with in the playroom today?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "She has cancer, and she had to have her arm removed today." And I'm thinking, man, this kid's going to make me a really good guy. One other thing I would like to do, if you don't mind, is just read a portion of a letter. I found this the other day. This is from when Justin went to Palm Harbor University High School. Dr. Harold Brown was the principal at the time, and he wrote a lot of great things. He said, "I have the opportunity to work with many outstanding students in the role as a principal of Palm Harbor University High School. In each class, however, there are usually 1 or 2 students who stand out as genuinely remarkable. In the class of 2004, Mr. Justin Nesselroad was one of those truly exceptional students for many reasons, but his strength of character, tenacity, and acumen as a scholar best represents the unique characteristics as much as it did then as it does today." He talks about later on here where he talks about Justin being diagnosed and having to have a transplant on his 16th birthday. He says, "I have the most enormous respect and unyielding admiration for Mr. Nesselroad. What really impressed me during this entire ordeal was that Mr. Nesselroad never complained, never used his illness as an excuse, or indulged in self-pity, even though he had every right to do so. He was clearly weary and exhausted from many years of fighting the disease, but you would never have known it because he kept his condition to himself. His personal and physical trials at high school gave me the chance to know him exceptionally well, which is how he became such an inspiration to me. Mr. Nesselroad rebounded from every setback that life had dealt with him, and with even greater determination to succeed at a world-class level. He's a brilliant, hardworking, enthusiastic young man who has proven his ability to work well under pressure and earn the respect of his peers, teachers, leaders in the community, while also becoming a hero to me and to our whole faculty." Justin, many times, had to get infusions, and during his lunch period, his mother and I would kind of switch off once in a while, but we would open the sunroof and put the bag up there, and he would be getting a drip while everybody else was eating. He would be sitting in the car getting an infusion drip. Even for his finals to graduate from high school, he was sitting there with an infusion drip, taking his finals. So And as difficult as it is to narrow down these couple moments to where he gave me teaching lessons, I want to share something that I received from one of the people from the YouTube family. She hasn't asked for any recognition and has given permission for me to use her first name. Her name is Lori, and she wrote me this recently. Can you put the picture up, please? There you go. This is how Justin, I want to talk to the YouTube family, if you mind. You guys really are a family. During this last 6 weeks where Justin has been in the hospital, you've helped us make it through it. We've cried with your comments, and you've strengthened us to get through a lot of them. Lori said, sorry, it's just because I can't see too far. I followed and watched your son Justin's entire journey on YouTube. His strength never wavered. The zest for life never added. His love for his family and his friends was apparent in many hearts that never got, in many hearts that never got to meet him are now broken. I edit photos, and this one I edited for Justin. His story, his fight, his love, and his strength encouraged me to work on my own personal relationship with God. I have your son to thank for that. I prayed many prayers, I cried many tears, and I dreamed that his miracle would come true. I'm deeply saddened to have heard his youth pastor update last week of his passing. Justin, rest in eternal and glorious peace. Thank you for sharing your life with the world. You will be missed and never forgotten. God bless your family, your wife, your son, and your dearest friends. I'll meet you on the other side. Your YouTube friend, rest easy. During that 6 weeks where Justin did get a transplant, his third transplant, he was awake. A lot of times he had be intubated, and but one time he came out after his transplant and he was doing really well, and he could talk, and so we would switch off. The family would switch off about every 35 to 40 minutes to go see him. Because of COVID, we had to be outside, but then we were allowed to go in and see him. And I went up to him and he goes, "Dad, I pulled out the big guns." I go, "What?" I said, "Well, you need to let the YouTube channel, you need to update them now that you're through this." I said, "They're waiting." And he goes, "Well, I pulled out the big guns. I've already done that. Jimmy and I just did it." And I go, "What?" He goes, "I reached out to Ryan Reynolds." He goes, I asked for a Deadpool suit. I said, "Okay, so we'll see how it goes." Unfortunately, Ryan Reynolds never did respond. So if you're out there, Ryan. And then there was one other time during that 6 weeks. You guys got to understand, Justin, during the 6 weeks, was so critically ill. And there were times when he was doing well. And so, but he was so critically ill, he really couldn't talk. And he was too weak to actually use his hands. He would shake a lot. So he was trying to tell us something. We didn't know what it was. Janet would see it. His mom saw it. And I talked to him, but we couldn't figure it out. We started down the alphabet, and we tried to get him to say yes or no. And all he would do would be this. And he would shake like this. And we couldn't figure it out. And then Jimmy goes, "You know what?" We went home, and Jimmy goes, "I'm going to figure it out." So Jimmy went in the next day, and he came back. He goes, "I've got it." And I go, "What?" He goes, he wants to know how his Tundra is, his Toyota Tundra. A couple days earlier, Colleen had a dead battery, and he was worried about his Tundra, nothing else. So one last thing I'd like to say, and then I'm going to turn it over to Colleen, is his surgeons and the surgeons with a liver transplant team for Tampa General are amazing. About a year and a half ago or so, we were given no hope, none. And he had been treated, he had cancer, and cancer grew too big for what is allowed by guidelines from certain places. And he did go through the chemotherapy, and he went through radiation. But one doctor, and I'll tell you, we called every transplant center I could find, and I was ready to go to another country. But one doctor here at Tampa General said yes. And his team is amazing, and Dr. Dan Reddy and Dr. VJ are here. Can you guys stand up? I don't know where you are exactly here. Oh, they're over there, sorry. But they are here. And you will never know when you have no hope of what hope means to you. And they gave us hope. And we understand that Justin's not here right now. He is here. But the ability to make it through it with hope is what I asked for, and you gave it to me. And we thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to his beautiful wife, Colleen.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. This was very difficult to write, not only for the obvious reasons, but how do you talk about somebody that was so great and fun and amazing and wonderful and all the things that he did in life. Justin had been my husband for 7 years. We just celebrated our 7th wedding anniversary on May the 4th of this year, so... And I've known Justin for about 11 years. There were 11 beautiful, beautiful years that we had together. He was always the type of person to put people first, especially his family and his friends. He has made some great friends, and he's kept some really great friends over the years. And he has a very loving and caring family. And he was very family-oriented as well. He loved his family so much. And that's one of the main reasons why I fell in love with him. He's got a heart of gold. He's so kind, and he was really respected by almost everybody that he's met. And he just had a good soul. I've always told Justin that he was my hero. I was in a bad relationship right before I met him, and I've always told Justin that he saved my life because I met him in the midst of my toxic relationship, and it was just a God-given thing that I had met him because I had taken his seat at work, and he would always fight me for that seat. So he was really different from all the people that I've known. He just had that extra spark in him, that little Justin Nesselroad sparkle. He exuded confidence, and he was so smart and so resourceful and so clever. He was very clever. There were other things. So Justin loved his family and his friends, but there were other things that he loved besides his family and his friends. He loved the movie Back to the Future and Deadpool. And I can't tell you how many times that he would tell me, Colleen, I'm going to go and I'm going to make a Deadpool outfit. And we're just going to go to the children's center and show up there and put a smile on their faces with my Deadpool outfit. And he did buy a Deadpool outfit. If over on that table over there is the mask that he had gotten and made in Russia. And I just got it in the mail a couple days ago. So he was just so funny, so funny. And honestly, I think he felt like a real, life-size Deadpool. He loved his son with every ounce of love that he had in his body. And there are many, many things that I'm always going to cherish that Justin and I have done. We would always have dance parties in the kitchen with Cooper. And Justin would always sing to Cooper at night. He would always sing him the Sunshine Song or the Go Johnny Go song. and we would always take walks around the block. And Justin would be pushing Cooper in his blue little push car, and he'd say, "Go, Daddy, go!" And they would run down the sidewalk. So it was great. It was great for me, and it was great for him. And while we were on those walks, we would always talk about our goals and imagine what our life is going to be like in the future. And we would always have a dream board in our bedroom, so we would never get lost and let go of what we wanted to do and where we wanted to go in the future. But I will say, Justin, that you have inspired me not only to be a better person, but to be a good human being. You've shown Cooper and myself to never give up, to have hope, and to be a better person every single day, and to give an amazing amount of love. He has shown me how to be brave and courageous through difficult times, and I will do my best to teach Cooper to grow up to be the best person that he can be, and to never, ever forget who his daddy was. And the legacy that Justin will leave for his son and the world is a testimony to the love that he received from myself, from Cooper, from his family, and from people around the world, and the many miracles that we witnessed in the life of Justin. And Justin, I love you so much, but I miss you so much more. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janet Graydon, and the name I love to be called the most and treasure the most is Mom. I am Justin and Jimmy's mom. When I think of Justin, one of the first things I think about is his passion for cars. His favorite toys were Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars. He could play with them for hours. By 3 years old, he could walk through a parking lot and name every car just by the shape. One of his favorite things to do was to work on cars and modify them in ways that he thought was cool. I get the feeling that if he didn't have anything to do to his car, nothing to fix or nothing to do to modify it, he would create something by having a car accident. Usually they were minor, except for that one with Brian Hoke, wherever he is, way in the back there. That one wasn't so minor. Justin and I one day decided to try to count how many car accidents he had, and I think we were up to 12 or 13 and cut it off, and that was just within the first 2 years of him driving. The garage and the attic were always full of car fenders, hoods, headlights, and more. Most of the things I didn't even know what they were. And if you look in his garage today, I guarantee it's the same. He raised Cooper to have that same passion for cars and trucks. Those of you that knew Justin as a teenager knew how excited he was about his 16th birthday so that he could get his driver's license. That was his focus. I remember that morning of his birthday, waking up to the phone ringing. I figured it was one of his friends trying to beat me to tell him happy birthday. Instead, though, it was the most amazing call. It was his doctors at Mayo Clinic saying that they had a liver for him. While we were all ecstatic, Justin could only be upset because he wanted his license. So while we got all ready and we're on the way, trying to get everything set for the plans that we had made to get to Minnesota, there were a few roadblocks in the way. I think this was God's way of giving Justin his cake and eating it too, because Jim got to take him down to get his license. They told the DMV what was going on and why he had to be first in line. I'm sure they really didn't believe it, but it was such a great story, they could not let him not go. God's plan for Justin was to have his liver. And then as soon as he got his license, we were on our way to the airport to get on a jet to go to Minnesota. Justin was fine then because he had his license in his hand. And he would do whatever he could and did do to make himself healthy again. I think that everyone in this room knows when Justin started this last journey towards liver transplant. He had many other obstacles to overcome. He decided to start his YouTube channel with his goal, and his goal was to inform, inspire, and educate. He wanted to tell his story, the ups and downs, from the perspective of a patient and what to expect if you or someone you know was going through the same or a similar situation. What those of you from YouTube that don't know is that when he was 16 and going through his first transplant, he created the liver blog. I wish that was still around, but it's not. But it was very inspiring. He used it to keep everybody informed, all of his friends back home, because we were in Minnesota, and everybody, that he was doing okay in every step that he was going through. Justin always wanted everybody to be okay. I can't count the number of times he would look at me and say, "Mom, how are you doing?" And I'd say, "I'm okay." And he'd look at me again and say, "No, Mom, how are you really doing?" Justin always had a positive attitude, so he made it easier for me to be okay. He was strong, he was a fighter, and he never gave up. Sorry. As a parent, you always think you're going to be the one to teach your child life lessons, but I think Justin taught me the best life lessons. I remember when he was 14 or 15, and the doctors told him he was going to need a stent put in his bile ducts. As we were leaving, I asked him, "Justin, are you scared?" And he looked at me so matter-of-factly and said, "Why would I be scared? Either God's going to make this help or it won't. Being scared won't change anything." That was Justin's attitude. He had faith that never faltered and always trusted in God's plan. I'm still learning that lesson. If you indulge me for just another minute, I know I'm going on for too long. But I want to say thank you to Colleen. Thank you for loving our son. You've been an amazing wife to him. A sentence that always came up in Justin's life was, he was looking for the perfect match, and he found it when he found you. You've loved him with your entire heart for the entire time that you've known him. We promised Justin that we would stand by you and take care of you and Cooper for anything you need. We don't take that promise lightly. We love you. You'll always be my daughter-in-law. And we will always be family. We will make sure that Cooper knows who his daddy is. And we will keep him alive in our hearts and minds. I know Justin loved you and Cooper because he told me every day. To our YouTube family, thank you for your love, your support, and prayers over the last 9 months. I read your comments every day for strength and encouragement. It makes me proud and happy to know the impact that Justin made on all of you. To Justin's friends, and there's so many of you in this room today, know that the love he had for you was real and genuine. You were always there for him. When he was down, you'd lift him up, and when he needed a laugh or a hug, you were right there. And finally, I just have a few words to say to Justin, my son, and the one who made me a mom. I'm trying to be strong like you were, and I'm trying to be happy for you because you have a perfect body and are no longer sick or in pain. I'm trying to be excited because you're reunited with your grandfathers and you can talk about all the things that they missed. I'm trying to picture you and Greg sitting around drinking Mountain Dew and yelling, "Euchre!" But the truth is, I'm not okay. I miss you so much, and my heart aches because you're gone. It's not right that you're gone and that we have to continue life without you. I pray every day that God will replace my pain with peace. I've never been good with goodbyes. I stretch them out for as long as I possibly can. And when you were in the hospital and I was there to visit you, I had to start preparing myself an hour ahead before I could walk out the door because I was leaving you behind. I know I have to end this, but I want to end it by just saying I am so proud of you, the way you fought, the way you lived, the way you wanted to be here with your family. From the moment I laid eyes on you, I loved you. So until we meet again, I will love you forever. Thank you.
My name is John Graydon. I am the man lucky enough to be Janet Graydon's husband. Janet told me about Justin's challenges on our first date. She relayed the story that her son had complications with his liver, and on the day they were going to go to the doctor to get the diagnosis, the news headlines that day were Walter Payton, football hero, dies of Crohn's disease. They then go up to the doctor's office and they're informed, your son has Crohn's disease. We were sharing stories. I have no idea what my story was. I had no idea at all. One of my first memories of Justin, though, was when we were invited to a party at his house where he was going to college at UCF. Now, I dropped out of high school to teach an accredited karate program at St. Petersburg College. I'd been to tons of college parties. I'd never been to a party quite like this. We arrived, and Janet ran across the room, jumped over the couch, landed in between a group of the kids, and she was immediately greeted as Janet, Justin's mom, a friend. It was really different. All the kids they're laughing, they're having fun, they're trying to dance to the new Dance Fever video game that was out, which I'd never experienced before. I kept thinking, you know, I've never seen somebody light up a room like Janet does, because she leads with a smile and she makes everybody comfortable. And I think I fell further in love with her at that moment. And I was something about this party, and I finally realized it. They're dancing, dance fever, because they're all hopped up on Mountain Dew. And even one of the kids had one of those hats that has the 2 cans of Mountain Dew. It was really lots of fun. It gave me an insight into the world that I was moving into, and I sure loved it. Years later, though, there was a different memory about Justin, and it is pretty powerful. It gives you a sense of not only is he a really smart guy, a giving guy, but he would literally do anything for his family. We were going to buy Janet a new Honda. Justin had worked in Honda for a bit in the internet sales area. And he mapped this out beautifully. We'll go on the last day of the month, July 31st. We'll get there about 10 minutes before they close, and then we'll start the negotiations. And it was perfect. It was even pouring rain out there. So the idea was salespeople want to get out of there. Maybe they'll cut the deal. Plus, it's the last day of the month. They'll want to make their quotas. I mean, it's genius. So we're in there, and he said, all right, he's going to come in here. He's going to say this, this, and this. And then I'll say this, this, and this. And then he'll go back to his manager and come back and say this, this, and this. 4 hours later, it was just amazing. I've been in all kinds of negotiations. I've done plenty of it. I sat there quietly and learned from the master. We drove away with a brand new Honda and got a super deal on it. So that's just indicative of what Justin was like. Smart, giving. He and Jimmy, fantastic role models for my sons, Christopher and Alexander. So, you know, I think back to that first date with Janet, and I just am the luckiest guy in the world in my mind. Every single day, I clasp my hands together, and I look up, and I go, "Thank you, Match.com," because that's where we met. But I truly thank God for bringing her into my life, and I do that throughout every single day. She is an amazing woman, and I'm really proud and honored to be part of this family. I've done plenty of speaking gigs, from Dr. Oz to the Moonies, Reverend Moon, but I've never been so honored to speak at any event as I am now, to speak on behalf of my relationship with this family and Justin Nesselroad. Thank you. I'm John Graydon.
I'm Perry. I'm Justin's favorite uncle. And they said it wasn't even close. So I'm going to read you something from Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's called Success. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you lived. This is to have succeeded. Sound like anybody you know? A bit over 30 years ago, I stood on a covered porch in a funeral home in Weirton, West Virginia, at what was the second showing of my father. I had stepped out to get some fresh air and try to gather what I could of my thoughts. As I looked in the distance, I couldn't help but notice the never-ending line of cars and trucks that had come to pay their respects. It was at that time, at 18 years old, that I realized what the net worth of a man truly is. It has nothing to do with your 401ks, the inheritance that you leave behind, the pile of homes and real estates that you may covet. The true wealth of a man or woman is measured by the lives that he or she has touched along the way, and by the amount of people who have taken upon themselves to make that final trip to say a thank you and an I love you. As I look around today, I understand that there are many more celebrating with us abroad. I realize what a wealthy man that Justin is. It makes me very proud to have had the honor to be his uncle and to have shared his life with him. As I write this, I am left to wonder if there are too many words to describe Justin or just not enough. Though I feel like I could and probably will go on talking about him forever, I feel lost trying to put the words together to describe what he meant to me. Justin did not have a personality, but rather a presence that would transcend generations. His ability to relate and emphasize and understand whomever he crossed paths with was remarkable. With his father's determination, his mother's beautiful smile, his kid brother's undying support, and later in life, the blessings of his wife, Colleen, and his son, Cooper, he was simply unstoppable. If there's one thought or lesson to come from Justin, I believe that he would want it to be kindness. He endured what life gave him to be an example for those who suffer with chronic illness and for those lucky enough not to struggle day in and day out. I will leave you with these exact words from an email from February of last year from Justin. He said, "If you really believe in someone, they can change. I know I have seen a lot of people change in my life, some for the better and some not so much. But it has to do with a lot of things. But it also means that we can change too. And if there's something in our life or our personality that we don't want to define us, we can change it. It's never too late. And who knows what that change will do for those around us. Rest in peace, my beautiful nephew. I love you more than words can say."
Hey, I told my dad to sandbag me, so everyone wasn't expecting a great speech, but that didn't work out too well for me. As most of you know, I'm Jimmy, Justin's brother. Up until yesterday, I didn't have any intentions of speaking today. Obviously, I changed my mind. Then I thought about just quoting the You Googly from Zoolander, because Justin and I watched that movie a million times as teens. Justin was always more than just a brother by blood to me. If you've never seen the movie, at least look up the eulogy scene. Alas, I didn't want to be sued for copyright infringement, so I decided I'll speak from my heart. Justin was the epitome of a brother and best friend. He was always there to keep me on track growing up or be a sounding board. I'll never forget the countless times that I would just shoot him a text because he's the only person that would at least pretend to care about my dumb comments, whether it was about trucks or work or anything. Justin was always there. Proverbs 27:17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." Growing up, Justin was always around, even if he didn't want me around, and he always took the time to sharpen me. He used his experience, his biblical knowledge, and his expertise to help me. I don't know how much I was able to sharpen him throughout his life, but I know that I would be as dull as a pre-Justin Honda Civic if it weren't for the guidance that he provided over the years. Justin was always there. On my first day of high school, I recall him looking at me, awkwardly walking around, and told me to relax, just put my hands in my pocket. Justin also taught me how to do just about everything I know when it comes to tweaking cars. He was there for me when I moved into my first apartment in college. He taught me by example how to love and be there for others. I'm sure almost everyone in this room has a story where Justin showed up when you needed somebody, whether it was because you needed a hand or needed a shoulder. Justin was always there. I'm so thankful for the time that I had with my brother. Justin's no longer physically here on this earth, but he will still always be here in our hearts. With the promise we have in Jesus, we know we'll see him again, and I can't wait. I know on my first day in heaven, I'm going to be walking around awkwardly with my hands in my pocket, and he's going to look at me and say, "Stop being so awkward." That's not how we worship here. Justin was and always will be there. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like for the friends that are going to be sharing to come up.
Well, I don't know how I got to be the one stuck following Jimmy, so thanks, buddy. My name is Andrew, and I was a late addition to the crew. My wife went to high school and church with Justin and all that crew, and when she and I started dating, I was kind of generously welcomed into the outskirts of the friend group, but not with Justin. Like, immediately, we just clicked, and we were buddies. We worked probably a half a dozen camps together, and so many of my Justin memories involve being at Lake Aurora and serving elementary and middle school students, and him doing the work that nobody else ever wanted to do, working harder than the rest of us, but taking none of the credit for things going well, and that was just Justin. But Melissa and I and Javi, who's sitting up front, got to be a part of a chapter of Justin's life that I don't think anybody else in this room got to be a part of, because right after college, I got a call from Justin that he was coming to Texas. Javi and I were in seminary in Dallas, and Justin called me one day. He's like, "Hey, I got a job interview, so I think I'm going to move to Texas for a job interview. It's why you move." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, like, what job is this?" And it was like, "It's at a Honda dealership." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like, when are you thinking about coming?" It's like, "I don't know, like the day after tomorrow." And he did. Like, he showed up at my house 2 days later, and that was just it. So he was interviewing at this dealership in Texas, and job interviews, like, they take time. And so I was like, I should probably do something. And Javi and I had worked at a valet company while we were in seminary. He's like, I can park cars. And so then he went and worked at a hotel with Javi for a couple of weeks until he started at the Honda dealership and got to drive all kinds of cool cars. We had a guest room that was empty, and so we were thrilled to have him there. And the original plan was for him to come stay with us for a couple months, but almost immediately after he started working, he's like, hey, I found some guys, and they asked me to be their roommate. I'm like, you've known them for like 3 days. He's like, yeah, I know. But that was just Justin. He made friends with someone, and in a matter of a week, they were asking him to move in because that's the kind of friend he was. But the time that he spent with us kind of gave me a glimpse of what it was like to be in that circle that all went to UCF together and to be one of the roommates. We ate junk food at midnight and went to ridiculously stupid movies. I think he and I are the only 2 living people that saw I Love You, Beth Cooper on opening weekend. And yet, even then, like, we were waiting for the movie to start. He's like, what a cool name. And now we have a Cooper. So I'd like to think that that had nothing to do with it, but I'll still take credit. But it was just easy being with Justin. And it was just, it was, here's this, Melissa and I were fairly newlyweds. We'd been married for maybe 2 or 3 years at the time, and there was another adult living in our house, and it was just easy. There was nothing awkward or anything, because being with him was just always easy to be around Justin. A few months after he had come out to Texas, he got sick again, and we were bummed for him and just kind of heartbroken because he was having to come have another transplant, and he had just built this new life, and he had started this new career, and just like that, it was all turned upside down. And I remember being at the townhouse he was living in, helping him pack. I'm like, aren't you frustrated? Aren't you upset? He's like, no, it is what it is. But I worked at the Honda dealership long enough to get my discount, and he bought a new Honda Fit before he left. And it didn't even faze him that this new life he had created had just been upended. He just shrugged it off and said, on to the next thing. He had this unbelievable gifting of perseverance and incredible flexibility that could allow him to go through incredible hardships and just let it roll off his back. It was just a couple of months that he was out there with us in Texas, but that time has made an impact and such a positive memory on us for just how kind he is, which we all know, but hardworking. And his perseverance, my wife said that if there was a definition of perseverance, Justin's picture would be next to it in the dictionary. I will treasure the time that we got to have with him and admire the perseverance that he showed with a smile on his face the whole time.
My name is Stephanie Schreier. It's an honor and a privilege for me to get to share today some memories that I have of Justin. We met at church youth group in middle school, and he instantly became a lifelong friend. Justin's battle with various sicknesses began at a fairly young age. Around maybe 12 or 13, he was in and out of the hospital, and the doctors were trying to figure out what was wrong, but he was never the sick kid. In fact, you would never know it all unless someone told you. Justin had the perfect balance of living his life in a way that didn't allow anything to hold him back from being as normal as possible and never really mentioning his health issues, but also being an open book about what he was going through. He wouldn't ever bring it up, but if you ever wanted to know, he would tell you all about it. Friday, September 20th, 2002, Janet stole my thunder a little bit. Some of you may not remember that day, but I do. It was Justin's 16th birthday, and he had been listed for a liver transplant for a month or two and just waiting for the call, and we didn't really know what to expect. I was sitting in chem class, knowing that Justin would be late because he was supposed to be taking his driver's license test at the DMV. He had an appointment. The school administrator, Mr. Brown, who I'm so glad, Jim, that you shared that note from him, he came in to tell me that Justin had gotten the call that morning about a liver available for transplant, because this was before cell phones and text messaging, because we're that old. I went to the school office and got to talk to him on the phone, and I was so excited. This is what we had been waiting and praying for. And he was finally going to get to feel so much better. And then Justin was so mad. This liver thing was ruining his plans because we were supposed to hang out that night for his birthday, and he was going to get to be the one to drive. So that story sums up Justin's outlook. He had such a strong desire to live and to enjoy being alive. And as Janet said, don't worry, he still took his driver's test somehow, despite running around all morning trying to find a plane to get to Minnesota for the transplant. I enjoyed watching people meet Justin and get to know him. Sometimes we would go to the beach or the pool with a group of friends, and he'd take his shirt off, and people's reaction when they would see his scar was really comical. He used to like to make up stories like that he survived a shark attack, or that he had gotten in a knife fight, and you should see the other guy. But when they found out that he had a liver transplant, the typical response was, "Oh, wow, I had no idea," because how else would you know? During the most crucial years of growing up, God absolutely blessed us with the best core group of friends. We were always hanging out together, always supporting and accepting each other, always having good, clean fun. We would play sequence, watch episodes of CSI, get Slurpees from 7-Eleven, and go to the theater for every opening night of the Fast and Furious movies, which there's a lot of them. If Justin wasn't with our friends, you could probably find him in the sound booth at church events, running the AV tech stuff, or on the computer designing the next youth event graphic t-shirt. One summer, towards the end of college, Justin planned and convinced a bunch of us to save our money and go on a cruise with 7 of our friends. We had the best time together. At one point, we were on a snorkeling excursion, and Justin snuck away from the group with my disposable camera, and he had one of the guys take a picture of him. He pulled his board shorts up on his legs and held a palm frond in front of him and made a crazy face, looking like he was naked. I had quite the surprise and a good laugh when I got home and developed the film. Some random things about Justin, as others have mentioned, he loved cars. I thought he was insane when he told me he was buying a car on eBay and he was going to fly out of state to pick it up and drive it home. Who does that? I blame Justin for my obsession with G2 Pilot ballpoint pens. If you know, you know. Best pen ever. He made the best zucchini bread, and even though I did get him to share with me his super secret recipe, I still can't get the chocolate chips suspended in the loaf the way that he would do it. He managed a successful paint business, and I will miss his immediate advice on which type of paint I should get for a particular home project. Justin and I attended each other's graduations, weddings, watched each other become parents. Colleen, I'm so glad Justin found you. You're his perfect match. When Matt was repeating your vows at your wedding, and he said, "For better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, for sickness and in health, in sickness and in health." At the time, it was a well-made joke, but here we are 7 years later, and you have been a living example to all of us on fulfilling that vow. Thank you for your Christ-like commitment to loving and caring for my friend. I could say a million more things, but I'll close with this. In 2003, Justin wrote these words in my senior yearbook. "I can't wait to see what God is going to be doing in our lives this summer and the rest of our lives. Don't ever forget that if you ever need someone to talk to, even when you're 32, I'll be there for you. I'll be wherever you need me to be as fast as I can. Thank you for being you, and keep smiling." So that's what I'm going to do for Justin. I'm going to keep smiling.
My name is Ben Winstead, and Justin was one of my best friends growing up. I want to talk about one of Justin's greatest passions. You guessed it, cars. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, he went through, 9 or 10 cars throughout high school and college. That's what I thought. He loved them so much. He loved them in films and TV, The Fast and the Furious, Back to the Future, and Knight Rider. Growing up, we made this pact, and this was his idea. He said, when we get rich, you and I are going to get a DeLorean, the same Pontiac Firebird Trans Am from the Knight Rider. We're going to go around the country, deck them all out, and go off on car shows and show off our toys. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. He loves cars so much. I remember going to his house numerous times, and there he was working on his car in his driveway. It was one of his greatest passions in life. But it wasn't the most important thing to him. It was his love for his God, family, and friends. He cared deeply for his family and friends. When you were with him, he made you his top priority. To him, you were the most important person in the room. That's how Justin made everyone feel. That's how he made me feel. Justin, your friendship has meant anything to me. I'll never forget your kindness, your good heart, your compassion, your love for Mountain Dew, and your amazing sense of humor. I love you, brother. And Colleen, Jim, Janet, Jimmy, thank you so much for letting me share today.
Hello, my name is James. Matt said keep it short and sweet, but I don't know if any of us can keep it short when talking about Justin. I had the privilege of having a guys' night with Justin and their sons before he started going back in and out of the hospital. When I heard the news